Building a franchise brand, and we're into episode 3 with Preservan, Ty McBride. We're going to talk about building your franchise team, going from founder doing everything or founder-led organization to adding team members, building franchise intelligence, and planning for scale. Ty, we are gearing up franchise growth here.
Yeah.
Now, so I'm excited about what we've been doing on this building series. And this is something we talk about so often where you're a franchisor, you're an entrepreneur, you enter this new world. And it's really, you're doing everything, founder led, family led. And so many times questions come up about who are key team members to hire, what it's like, what should I be thinking about building my knowledge and scaling. So we're talking about preserving your journey. How do you frame all this, or how do you think about it?
Well, man, building a team and framing that up, man, that's there's so much there because I think, especially when you're going from like we have, where started just over 2 years ago, no franchises. We sat here today with 17 locations and a few others in the pipeline. Things move very fast, and it's hard to keep up with what the right team structure is and how you're going to do that and how you're going to afford that and all of those pieces. But what I think about it is that obviously, and this is something at the franchisee level that we talk about with our new franchisees, and then at our level, having the right people, both as employees or partners in the business, or just people I can talk to. That is what helps us support our franchisees and what is allowing us to grow to where we're at today.
Well, I know the team so much more, right? And you have April, your wife, right? Who not only when you're meeting franchisees, but they come over to the house for dinner, right?
Yeah.
But Ty, let's baseline today. What does your team look like? How you see it?
So just kind of like the size of our
Yeah.
team right now.
Yeah, like if
Yeah.
you, in terms of core team members, or not names, but
Yeah.
positions, yeah, what does that look like?
So I'm going to speak first directly to employees, right? Like people that are part of the core team. Now, I think that our team is really bigger than this as we leverage partners and advisors, but
Right.
we start out with that core team. There's myself, and then we have a COO, Travis. We have kind of, I'm not going to say their names. Emily, she's been with me for a long time. Everybody needs an Emily. But she's kind of our office manager and does a lot of like the relationship with the franchise stuff. And then we have a technical support coach named Josie. That's our core team. So we have a few others, and of course my wife April, who kind of does some brand ambassador stuff. But that's the core team that like daily is doing the heavy lifting of Preservan.
So if someone new to franchising, or they're just starting the journey, the question I get often is who are some core team members or functions I should be looking to hire? And maybe it's not today, but along the way, what are
Yeah.
those roles I should be filling?
So for me, I think for me, it's like an evaluation of yourself. So when you're an early stage brand, a startup brand, or emerging brand, you have to understand what is the superpower, what is the thing that I bring to the business, and then start looking to hire where you're weak. And so for me, I know that I love getting out and talking about the business, right? It's like that's my passion. I love talking about it. I have always loved I've always encouraged people to get into entrepreneurship. Now I just get to do it as a job. So that's my passion. So then I'm going to hire around the places where I don't have as much energy, and I don't have as much passion. And so that's where I kind of just did that evaluation and said, like, what are the things that I need to get out of? And all along the way, so first it was just me, and then it was me and Emily, essentially, as our office person. That's kind of how I think of it, just like filling that gap. Who's got more energy for smaller conversations or frequently asked questions or those types of things. So filling that gap. So that's always what I'm trying to do when I'm building a team is just kind of fill the gaps of my weaknesses with people who bring like a lot of strength to that space.
So some roles or areas of responsibility, just to get quickly your general thought. If we're talking about sales, compliance, operations, and marketing,
Hmm.
now sales, we'll talk about. And look, behind the scenes at Preservan, it very much is still founder led, and you're there supporting franchisees out there on franchise sales, and it's the way every business is initially. So, but when you think about these core tasks, franchise sales, compliance, operations, marketing, what comes to mind in terms of, what someone should be focused on? Or in your case, like I know on franchise sales, you're very involved, right?
Hmm.
You're interacting with brokers, you're at conferences, building up your knowledge base, working on your media, YouTube channel. So, what's some advice out there on sales, the sales function?
So in the sales function, right? Okay, for us, it's not the same for everybody. For us, this is going to be founder led. Uh, I like I enjoy speaking to these individuals, but uh, for us, rather than go like the developer route and hire like a salesperson internally to help me out, because we have a lot to go through, or to do some prospecting or marketing for new franchises, the best strategy that we found was this is a partnership with brokers. So to join a handful of broker networks, but more importantly than joining a few broker networks was to find brokers within those networks where we had value alignment, where they understood who we were, who they liked our business, because if they like our business, they're going to present our business, they're going to really help paint that picture. So to find those brokers who could act as an extension of of us out there promoting us. So that in the sales side, that's a huge part for us. Supplementally, is then my wife April does a lot of the just kind of personal connection, and then it gives me space. So I think that's great to have inside your organization as somebody, if this isn't you, that can kind of handle that personal connection, that like one to one. The type of person that remembers your dog's name or your children's name or what your birthday is. I'm not great at that stuff, but what I do love to do is really kind of cast a vision for both Preservan as a business and Preservan as a local business, but Preservan as kind of a movement of repairing homes. And so it kind of frees me up. And that was a conversation we had early with our team to say, a lot of founders, I think, get out of that part too fast. They get out of it way too fast. There's so much bad advice out there about don't be founder led, like whether taking your face off of the website or all that. We realized, I think, with some of with some of your content, like no, we want to stay founder led. So that means I needed to free up my time to do more of that. So that's been a lot of our development has been around making sure I can stay. I take out of the calls that we have, I'm going to be on 80% of those calls.
Yeah. Yeah, and you've said it perfectly, especially founder led, and to think about it, what a difference having you and April, the face of Preserving, as you enter this new world, as you interact with brokers and you speak with candidates versus hiring a third party company that's going to do that for you or some intermediary. Um, Compliance, right? How do you view franchise compliance? It's not a like, so what's the advice for franchisors out there? Like, how are you navigating whether it's FDD compliance, those issues? And how do you view that part?
Are we speaking like we talk about compliance? Are you asking me like
No,
pre like
no, I'm saying
signing
that,
or post signing?
yeah,
Okay,
no,
gotcha.
I'm saying pre-signing, right? You're going through process. It's pretty
Right.
streamlined, right? You have your legal
Yeah.
counsel handle
Yeah.
FTDs and stuff like that. No big internal issues there, right?
Right.
Now, so you sign them up. Okay, so what does that onboarding look like with franchisees?
Yeah. So we're talking more about like support. How do we support them in a way
Yeah.
that they're delivering our mission, our services to their market? compliance, right? So for us, I think that that's probably where we put like all of our efforts to, that, especially an emerging brand, revenue is the most important thing. But for revenue has to come at the franchise level, because all this stuff trickles down to us. So we got to be focused on driving revenue for our franchisees. That is the most important thing that we think about at our level. Like, more important than development is driving franchise revenue, and then working with them to make sure they're profitable. But so when I think about that, what have we done? So early on, I was, I'm not as actively involved in that process. Early on, I was, it was me and my business partner. Like it was just us doing all of that side of the business. But now of course, we have my business partner, who's head of operations, and then alongside him is our technical support coach, and kind of who acts. Our COO acts kind of more as like a business coach, and our technical support coach focuses on the compliance aspect, but really just about how to deliver amazing services at the local level. So really for us, it's about staying really close to like, how do we do that? We stay really close to our franchisees, like just really close. Like, no, I try to have no air in between them, and that means for us, we have uh, a weekly cohort. So once weekly, myself and our CEO and our technical support coach meet with 5 of our owners in kind of a cohort group, where we just kind of talk about what's going on. We kind of drill down into their business. My technical support coach does a technical Tuesday. So every Tuesday, she's answering any questions related to technical issues. She's having weekly one-on-ones with them. We're reviewing KPIs, kind of following an EOS method. We're doing a monthly thing where I kind of do a kind of a state of the business every single month. So we just try to stay like this close to everybody, given the age of our franchise and the how new most of our franchisees are.
Ty, this connects with culture, communication, franchisees, and at the last Frank Camp conference, a founder really impressive that had shared part of their philosophy for their franchise system, which for them was making every decision about protecting the brand, protecting the
Mm-hmm.
franchisees. And I thought a really good perspective on, you know, understanding that your franchisees are also your customers. And so if they're paying you X dollars a year in royalties, are they getting great value for that? So as an emerging brand, right, founder led, now you're building up team. How do you view culture and communication with the franchisees? And now you mentioned some of those touch points there, which I think are critical, right? Those so what's your experience with that? How are you viewing that touch point?
And as far like communication wise, I think that like I said, we have to stay. We believe, and we have as a value and part of our culture, that we are going to be very close in relationship with our franchisees. I in not in a compliance way, but compliance ultimately becomes a part of this. But not in a compliance way. I want to know everything I can about their business, and I want my team to know everything we can about their business. I want to know last week what their revenue per hour was. I want to know. I want to know if they hired it or if they had to let somebody go. I want to know if how many leads they got last week, what their conversion rates are. Our team wants to know all of this information. So we want to stay really close to them, because at this point in our development and our growth, we're laying the foundation on the support side of our business, on the compliance side of our business. We're laying the foundation for the next 10 years. What we are today will establish who we are 10 years from now. And it's through our franchisees that we're going to be able to gain or lose, right? It's their success. Uh, it also has a supplemental benefit, which is because we at this level communicate with our franchisees like this, they begin to communicate at their level, both like it sets the standard for how we're going to communicate with our customers, our neighbors, as we would call them. But it also sets the standard of how they communicate with one another, which is super powerful and it's also a load off of a growing brand is when your franchisees are not coaching one another, but they're helping one another. When you have an open chat that you don't have to worry about what's being said, and I'm not even in it. Because they're just helping one another out. Somebody's got a project, asking a question about it, or somebody's thinking about buying a new Ford Maverick and finding out what the best deal somebody's getting. So they're having these conversations, which are awesome. It also lightens the load on us at the franchisor level because they ask each other a lot of questions, and they ask top performers, and they know who the top performers are because we have a monthly meeting where we highlight who's the top performers and who you should be asking questions of. So all of this stuff just really starts to establish a culture and something that we have a vision for last, beyond us.
Yeah, outside looking, you're pre-positioning the culture and the franchisee communications, and one of the most troubling things I'll see, not troubling, but um, where newer franchisors aren't don't develop that monthly cadence for financial reviews and that financial coaching. And then sometimes they'll be phrased like, hey, I didn't, they're not giving us our financials. But what preceded that, right? How did this
Yeah,
relationship start? So I mean, Preservan has been culture driven. I think that's so critical. And Ty, that's another great point, which is, I mean, and I get it. There's cash flow, always issues. And episode 4, we're going to be talking about all the economics of franchising. But so there's that incentive to say, I want to focus on franchise sales and generating franchise fees. But to your point and that longer vision, the win comes from building the franchisee revenue, the franchisee profitability, and that royalty stream, because that's the whole future of your franchise system. So
yeah.
those are
It
critical.
One of the things that has been, even when we have best intentions, it's good to have guardrails. And one of my guardrails is we have some local connections here that are or one that's an investor in our business, has a lot of experience being a franchisee. Uh, he's got a handful of Dunkin' Donuts and involved in auto franchises, but early stage, I would talk to him about, I'd get really excited and I would send him a text message and be like, we've got these in the pipeline, or we're awarding this. And always his comeback was, how's this franchise doing that you guys signed, 6 months ago? How are they doing? Always is his comeback, asking me how our franchisees are doing, because his perspective, being a multi-unit franchise owner, is how are your franchises doing? And I think that has been, though at my core, that's what I'm about. Some days you can look at the in the P&L and go, I want to focus on awarding. I want to focus on development, and we still do need to do that, but remembering always it's about the franchise and about how successful they're being. It's a super helpful guardrail for me.
Well, I mean, it's like if there were a success code, right, for franchising, that's it, right?
Yeah,
Which is, I mean, and it sounds so foundational. Um, Industry, you've been doing this for how many years, Ty?
the franchise side of it, or
Yeah,
just the
franchise
yeah,
side.
franchise, just about 3 years now.
3 years, actively involved. So, two questions, really things. One, how do you build up that franchise IQ and franchise intelligence, right? Of learning the industry.
Yeah.
And what's some practical advice that comes from it for franchisors, whether it's about, just some of the lessons learned on your end?
Yeah. That's been a interesting ride, right? Because there's a lot of there's some not a lot of content, but there's some content, of course. We our foundation of building our franchise IQ, understanding franchise, was a book wrote by the group that owns iFranchise. It was a very boring, large textbook about franchising versus licensing. I was watching videos, your videos, and a few others in this space. So that's how we started. And that stuff is really good because it can kind of give you some high level stuff. But the next step for me was, I remember and it was like, I'm not, there's a conference. I won't say the name because I'm not going to talk poorly about it, but it was the wrong conference for me.
Right.
But I was like, I just got to get out there and I've got to like get next to people who are doing franchising. And I went to this conference and there was no emerging brands. Like I'm sitting in a room with Fast Signs and Sonic, and I'm sitting with people who are on there like, it's like a marketing thing. But uh there was like two founders in the building. Like my stage, and I think we both just kind of accidentally made it to this conference. But still, I'm always happy to be the dumbest person in the room. And this conference, man, I just go, I don't know who to talk to. I'm like this new guy, and I've you got your hors d'oeuvres or your drink, and you're sitting by yourself at a table, like not knowing what to do. All these vendors are there are way out of my budget, so I can't even really justify talking to any of these vendors. But just having these individuals come and talk to me, and just being willing to be the dumbest person in the room, and man, it was not the right place for me, but I got so much out of it. I remember coming back and telling my wife, April, I was like, I probably won't go to that one until we have 100 units, but, and I probably won't go. Somebody in my marketing department would go.
Right.
But the stuff I learned at the ground level from these like people who are involved in this technical side of the business, really great because I was just the dumbest person there. And I continue to do that. Right. So this is, I mean, not to promote you guys too much, but then being part of the Fran Camp group has been uh, great because the combination between being in a room with people who have been there and really done it, whether that's the melting pot guys or the hot chicken people or the people that you guys bring into these organizations who have really gone above and beyond in franchising, other people who are roughly the same stage as I am, who are kind of in that 10 to 20 units, who are kind of going through the thick of it, and those getting started. So much valuable perspective. And then same thing, just willing to go there and be the dumbest person in the room. I that is how that's how I've built my understanding of the franchise industry, both from a support perspective and from a development perspective.
Yeah, and then it's making good decisions, right? And equipping yourself. Ty, as you're speaking, we're talking about the journey, right? Um, like you enter, every new franchisor does. So you've built a business, you have all this passion. We have families, and like I sometimes I don't even know why I'm motivated in the morning. It's like it's exciting, right? So it's fun. So you enter a whole new world, and let's talk about that, right? But not from your perspective. How do you equate it to the stories and experiences you have with your franchisees? And like from your perspective as founder and entrepreneur, what do you see them doing? Like what's the moment, or what's the points in their life that are motivating them? And if you had to guess, like what are they thinking about, dreaming about? Like how do you assess that? And how do you equate yourself to their journey?
Well, man, for most of my franchisees, we have very similar journeys in a lot of ways, right? So most of our franchisees are between 35 and 55. So, and I'm right there in between them. And so not all of them, but a lot of them have families, young families. Some of them have grandchildren, right? And so what I hear so much, and this is a Preservan thing. I don't know if this is everybody's thing, but what I hear so many people, and I'll speak to one specifically. I remember talking to it's our Athens franchise owner Steven, and he was franchisee number 5, and he had a really, he went and got his MBA uh, to be a business owner. Like that was his vision. Him and his wife, like on their, I want to say it was like their honeymoon or one of their first dates. Like they had a vision to own a business, and that was what they wanted to do. And the path that had been given to him was, well, go get your MBA, maybe do like a acquisition deal, but his the capital raising for acquisition he was finding a little bit difficult. But I remember talking to him. He got his MBA there at Athens. He lives in Atlanta, or he's working in Atlanta, corporate job, making a healthy 6-figure income, and he's missing something with his kids, right? Like he's on the way, he's missing something with his kids, And for those of you that know, and those of you that don't, the Atlanta traffic is a nightmare. And he's committed to Athens. That's where he wants to live. That's where he wants to raise his family. So he's got this like maybe a 4-hour commute this day, and he's missing something. And it was like literally in that moment, like that's it. I'm done. I'm done doing life this way. And honestly, for me, kind of and equating that with kind of my experience, both my experience is like why I started my business originally was like, I'm done living my life that way. I want to have control. In our first video, I think I shared with you about, or I remember sharing with you about my son and
Mhm.
about not knowing kind of what the future was and just wanted to make sure I had control over my future to be there for him when I needed to be there for him. Then franchising was kind of the same thing. Like it's now I want to have control at a new level of my life and I want to be able to grow our business. But when I looked at my growth strategy of growing it in a corporate way, that just didn't look like the life I wanted to have. Having managers everywhere, you know, 3 or 4 locations, having managers, that just wasn't the life I wanted. It wasn't the life that April and I wanted. We didn't want that kind of thing. The idea of working with owners that we could kind of share this life with, that was what was going to like get me excited to wake up in the morning. And so it's similar, right? It's that wanting this transition, wanting this transformation, that is what I wanted as becoming a business owner, becoming a franchisor, and that is what our that's what our franchisees are looking for is transformation.
There's so much there, right? Because I guess it's whatever, there's like, I guess as an adult, we all wake up at a certain point and it's like, man, I'm only getting one shot. One thing I'm proud of, what some of our core team members, I mean, instrumental to our company here, like been building this with me for decades and they're young, right? But I laugh when they'll tell stories, like they'll tell new people, like, Charles would just disappear years ago and he would say nothing to anyone, but they knew it was, I disappeared to go to a baseball practice,
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
you try to connect that, I guess, Ty, which is, it's like it really is a gift if you can enjoy what you're doing and be passionate
Hmm.
about it, provide for your family and enjoy your life, right? It sounds so cliche, but it's amazing. Like what you're describing, it really gets to the heart of what we're doing, right?
Yeah,
The and it's funny, then you can't fake it. Like you, April, like you're family driven, you have a beautiful family, meet other team members, and then, I can't wait one day to meet some of those franchisees and stuff. But
yeah.
so how does it make you feel? Like when you got, you know, dads and moms maybe or grandparents, and they're wearing their Preservan shirt and like they're sort of resting a lot of trust and value in you because it extends to their family also.
Man, it is both the most rewarding and most scary thing outside of having children and getting married. This
Yeah.
is the most rewarding and scary thing I have ever done. Uh because of what you just said, right? Like, and you have to be honest with yourself. And this somebody said this at one of the Fran camps. I think it was the Melting Pot guy. Is that not everybody is going to be successful in your business? Not everybody's going to be successful. There are things that are outside of my capacity. There are things that happen like COVID that could make something go bad. There are things that are outside of your control. Not everybody is going to be successful, and that's a really scary thing to think about. And there have been many nights where I don't sleep well, or it's just like 4 hours because I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking about a franchisee who may be going through a tough time right now. Maybe it's a personal tough time. Maybe it's a business tough time because these things happen. Business is not easy. Business is not for everyone. And so there are some, like dark nights of the soul for sure. And I don't think if that's not how you feel, you probably this you probably don't have like a clear conscience because you going to be scared, and it is scary. You are asking people to go into debt, to give up their life savings. You should not take this lightly. You are not selling cars, you're not selling services. You are asking people to leave their life and follow you and your business. And you should take it very seriously, and you should fully accept that some will not make it, and do everything you can. But it is scary. That is scary. But on the other side of that, uh, the calls that I get to have, a majority of my phone calls are just these amazing calls of wins that make up for all that time I don't sleep. Right? It's just amazing calls of people hitting record months, or people going on vacation to a point where they're not having to like open up their laptop when they're gone, or people. This is a Preservan thing, but people landing these like projects that, I was just talking to one of our franchisees. They completed this beautiful like restoration of these downtown windows in their market, like, and just like the feather in the cap, not just for him but for the whole team, like that they're walking, they're on clouds, walking around going like, we did that. And all businesses hopefully are able to deliver some sort of transformation for their employees and their team. But like, that's the thing that makes it all worthwhile, when you're doing something and asking people to do something that's pretty scary, honestly.
Yeah, and they're like life lessons. It's so interesting what business and running a business or running a franchise, and as a person you change over time. I think about, even growing our company, like so many things that I did to improve the business or to become better at what we're building influence everything you do. Everything to how your relationship with your children and your wife. And so it's a good journey, Ty. I mean, so we discussed building team, but I think the most important part here, well, team, also unit economics, critical in terms of your real win comes from your franchisees growing and succeeding. But the bigger point, I guess I love the last part of this segment, which is it's about the culture, it's about that connection and about that obligation. And I,
Yeah.
I guess that's what's been attracting people. You can't fake it, right? You just
No.
can't fake it.
And just one last point on the team, to kind of book in this, is that making sure that last statement I made about making sure that people understand how important this is. That is the thing, to make sure on your team that everybody gets what's going on here. Like, everybody gets the risk that each one of these individuals is taking, to be part of our organization. And then when we wake up every single day to be serious about what we're doing, and about the support that we're offering, and about how critical it is to make sure the right people join. It is making sure our team understands the seriousness of this and the value that we're supposed to be offering.
Well said, Ty. That's episode 3. And then episode 4, I think this is going to be really interesting, and something. It's all about the economics of franchising, what it's like to, why are we franchising? What are the economic goals? And what's the reality behind all these numbers? So that'll be episode 4.